proud to be sponsored by Diamond Bright, the car care products that have been keeping the furious fleet looking their best for a long time already. To find all you need to keep your car clean and protected, follow the link below to diamondbright.co.uk. Well, hello, welcome to Furious Driving and Happy New Year. And 2020, well, that happened, didn't it? Well, it was an interesting one, and I've got a whole list of quick recap of the year, really. This was an exciting, interesting, different year. Because last year I was doing Furious Driving as a bit of a fun sideline, but this year, when 2020 happened, it kind of became mostly my job for a lot of the year. So it's been an adventure, really. So I thought I'd share with you some of the statistics that that YouTube have shared with me, and also looking back at the year, I can't believe half the stuff that's actually happened. It seems so long ago now. So I've got my little iPad and I've got a list of stuff that I can share you. Do you like statistics? I'm sure you do. If you glance down to below where my name is, Furious Driving, it'll tell you we're on about 40,000 subscribers, which in the grand scheme of things in terms of YouTube is still pretty much small fry, but in terms of where I've grown to in the last year or so, that's pretty huge, because apparently I have gained 22,000 new subscribers this year. So the channel has more than doubled in size during 2020, so that's one good thing that's happened as far as this channel is concerned. And that means, well, it doesn't mean that, but it has happened, that 4.9 million views happened on this channel, or 4.9 individual views of videos, and that altogether, you lot somehow managed to watch 614,000 hours of furious driving. And you, well, I definitely got the better deal here, because I only uploaded 4,282 minutes, so I didn't have to sit through nearly as much of myself as you did. I definitely got the better deal there. And you might be thinking, that's a lot of minutes and a lot of time. Yeah, I think it probably was, because apparently, I don't know how many comments were made on the videos, but I responded in terms of either a comment or a heart, which means I read it and replied potentially, to 13,697 comments, which is a lot. And you might be thinking that takes a lot of time. You'd be right, it does. Oh, I don't know if you can see my breath in there. I thought I'd come and sit in the Alfa because it's nice to have the Alfa back at last. I'm maybe regretting this. It's actually quite chilly out here. I was going to do an outside walk around, but I think it's going to snow any minute. Well, how did the year start? It started well, and it started normally. First review of the year was the mini little coupe thing, the little kind of baseball cap backwards mini, which I filmed on New Year's Day, and it went live on the January the 3rd, and it looked like it was going to be a strong year of other reviews and things going on. And I managed to get through 67 new and retro reviews, or old-timer reviews. A lot of cars, which I'll come to in a minute, but first of all, talk about my own fleet and the things that have actually happened and evolved on the fleet here. So starting beginning of 2020, a whole year ago now, I just got rid of the Hyundai Coupe, which was from the end of 2019's Cheap Car Challenge. That's a good car, actually. I kind of regret selling that. I actually saw it for sale. Someone flagged it on Gumtree or Marketplace. It was up for basically what I sold it for a year ago. Someone was moving it on again for the same money. I was tempted to buy it back, but I've got enough things as it is without adding more to it. And I started making progress on various projects, as I'm sure you saw at the time. But yeah, nothing was really motoring on, and everything was just we're kind of getting into spring, and the first lockdown happened in, was it March, April? That's just the kind of time my regular work starts getting quite busy, so Furious Driving was kind of going on the back burner a little bit at the time. But suddenly we found out the world was about to change in a quite dramatic way, and I had a lot of cars scattered around the place, so I decided that the only thing I was going to be able to do, because I wasn't going to be able to go to work and I wasn't going to be getting any furlough payments, as I discovered as we went along, I was going to bring absolutely everything here and stockpile, but not stockpile tons of loo roll and gin. I was stockpiling MIG welding, gas, cutting and grinding things, bits of metal, car parts, you name it. So I was ready for the coming months, however long it was going to be. And so although the whole lockdown period was pretty much disastrous for nearly everyone really, me included, as far as my cars were concerned, it was actually quite fortuitous. So yeah, let's have a little look around at what happened to all the cars one at a time, because there's a fair few of them. I won't go into costs, because I try not to keep a record of it, because it would just be too depressing. I know Harry's Garage just did a complete roundup of what he spent on his cars this year. I think he spent about 10 grand on his 35 exotics, I'm worried I might have spent somewhere close on half a dozen ragtag rock boxes, which aren't worth 10 grand if you all sold them all together. Right, starting with the Rover 220, the coupe, which is actually one of the long-termers on the fleet. It's been here quite a while now. Well, that started the year innocuously. It's parked where I'm sitting right now. And one morning I looked out the window and I thought, that's weird, the back window's full of condensation. You might remember this if you've been with the channel a bit of a long time. This will be a new one to you if you've only recently subscribed or started watching these videos. But yeah, I went out to have a look and it wasn't condensation. Heat expansion and contraction had shattered the back window on that car, which was... some people are saying no, that can't happen, but then it turns out actually it's fairly common on those coupes because of the way that the car is built and the stresses in the glass, and it always goes around the heater element in the back. So yeah, that was bad. I knew it was going to go. Every time I opened the door, opening it very carefully, I could see the glass holding together, but only just. And I knew that one bang of the door, it was going to go. So obviously, put a blanket in there, bang the door. That was a good way of getting the glass out. The insurance, I'm still waiting to see if they'll cover the payment because I couldn't get a new one for love nor money. Thankfully, someone in the Owners Club had a second-hand one. This is why Owners Clubs are fantastic for bringing people and parts together. And so I managed to buy a new used second-hand one, get that fitted, and then because the glass was out, I was able to get the roof painted, which had been a long-term need of that car, was to repaint the roof, which needed the glass coming out, and I didn't want to risk breaking the rear window. And since the window was broken already, it wasn't a problem. So all told, it kind of was a bit of a win. It cost a few £100 all told to get the glass, get the paint done, everything like that. As I say, yeah, the insurance, because it was a second-hand piece, they were a bit wary about paying for it. Eventually they did kind of agree to pay for it. Then they said they wouldn't pay for the glass, they'd pay for the fitting, and I'm still waiting, but I've changed insurance companies since then, so I've pretty much given up hope on getting that money out. The Mini, nothing really much happened to the Mini this year that I remember. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I've completely forgotten some major surgery that has completely passed me by. No, it had an MOT not so long ago, changed the thermostat not so long ago. Just drove it a little bit, didn't drive it much. I mean, it was one of the few cars the only car I took to a show this year, because there was a Irish to meet up the Gaydon Heritage Centre near Birmingham. So we drove up there in between lockdowns. So I had a day out in the Mini. That's one of the only cars I actually got to go to any kind of event all year. So yeah, that actually earned its keep. Did a couple 100 miles in that particular event. So that was nice. Not much to say about it though, apart from the fact it's still going strong. It's just had its new thermostat. Doesn't appear to have dumped all its water on the floor since I've done that, so that's a positive. So that's not really cost anything beyond an MOT. In fact, the MOT cost like 150 or so because they had an airbag, like as always on Y-Reg Minis. There's always an airbag on those things. The thing with these cars is because we were sat down for half the year, not able to drive anywhere, the mileage hasn't gone up and the use hasn't happened. So all these ideas I had for going, visiting places, going around the country, taking the cars on jobs, all these classics are now insured for business use, so I can take them out on shoots and events for work. So that was my plan for the year, but obviously didn't happen. Now, the one we're sitting in right now, the Alfa 145 Cloverleaf, the QV as some people call them. This was a bit of a make or break year for this car. It almost wasn't here. This time last year, 2019, it had failed its MOT, or it was going to fail its MOT. I don't think we actually submitted it for one because we did a pre-inspection and saw that there was corrosion in the sills, which is a really common problem on these cars. Sills, floor pans, strut tops, danger zones on these cars. Anything TPO based, basically. I was particularly miffed because they sold it as a restored car. Apparently they'd done a lot of welding to it, and I paid strong money for this car because of the condition and the fact it had been welded. So I was not happy to find that it had got great big holes in it. So anyway, it sat there and I thought, I don't want to spend money on it right now. Lockdown happened. It was a perfect opportunity to get involved in this car, and I had plenty of time at home and a welding kit, which is a rubbish welding kit it turns out, but a welding kit nonetheless. So I got to it and started cracking on, cutting out basically the length of the sills on both sides and having a go at welding it. So it spent the entire lockdown period in having that done, and then I pulled the dash out twice actually, changing this blower resistor so I could have an internal blower fan on this car. I did also get the dashboard instruments out so I could change some lights in there so I could actually see how fast I'm going at night, because this is a car which really runs away with the speed. You think you're doing like 40 or 50 and it creeps up if you're not careful. Also bought an aircon compressor for it, so we now have the opportunity, when I do the cam belt very shortly, to change the aircon compressor out and get air conditioning back on this, hopefully for summer next year, 2021. Yeah, anyway, so once lockdown, we were in between lockdowns, and I had it trailered off to my friend who is a really good welder, and we got strut tops welded. He went over my welding to improve it where he could see it needed improving, and just certify it as safe, basically. And now the car is back. It's had a lot of money spent on it in the last month or so. Still needs a cam belt doing, but that wasn't something I had asked him to do. But he doesn't like being on camera. I've got a friend who runs an Alfa garage who doesn't mind being on camera, so hopefully we'll be able to get the cam belt changed and do a video about doing that before too long. And being an Alfa garage, it's indoors, so I can go set the cameras up and go and have a cup of tea. Right. Now, this car is now safe. It's done. It's not done. It's always something else, but it's back on the road and it is saved for posterity, which is a real relief, because this is one of my kind of dream cars, if you like. My bucket list cars was to have one of these again, and I didn't want to be being the one who scrapped it, which would have been a real crying shame. Right, so next, what else have we got? We've got the Rover V8, another one who, well, the lockdown was actually quite an advantage for, because I've been sort of dawdling on building the engine, putting the engine back together. I think partly because of fear of the cost of the project, because it was meant to be a cheap £300 one weekend fix, a few broken bolts, and suddenly it's an expensive project which has run into quite a lot, and I'm actually a bit worried about turning it on for the first time. No reason that should be, because it turns over by hand perfectly well. So anyway, I finally had the opportunity to take time to finish building the engine, connect it up to the gearbox, which is not going to be staying. That 3-speed Borg Warner is horrible gearbox. That's going to go, and so. But just to get it running, it's got the SUs, it's got the Borg Warner, just to get it out of the garage and rolling. But yeah, I got the engine built and I actually got it installed in the car. But because it was all lockdown, social distancing, couldn't ask for help. So moving a V8 engine and a gearbox on your own, on a slope, on lumpy tarmac, is not fun. I can assure you that I was very worried about the windscreen and more than once, and the bulkhead and everything else in the vicinity, frankly. But it went in there. It's now bolted in. I'm now in the final straight. I can see the finish line on that car. That's nearly done. But the lockdown was actually an advantage for that car, because it meant I was sitting at home twiddling my thumbs. As I say, YouTube had basically become my job. I gave all my time to doing this. So good for these cars. The 2 litre, the 2000 Rover P6, that one I couldn't do anything to, because we weren't allowed out apart from going for our daily exercise walks for 3 months. So I didn't see the car for a quarter of a year, third of a year. And yeah, when I finally went around to go and sort it out, the engine mounts I knew I needed to change. One rounded bolt in a garage with no power meant that car was then stranded once we were out of lockdown. And I was going around there. I ran an extension lead from a house down the road, 4 or 5 extension leads up the street into the lock-up garage, so I could run an angle grinder and try and grind the top off the bolt. Got to the point where I couldn't get the grinder any further. Had to go in every night with a cordless drill and drill until I ran out of battery, and then come back the next day with a charged battery. It took weeks to get the bolts out, but finally got new engine mounts in that car. So yeah, that one has happened at last. Other existing cars on the fleet, the Mercedes, I spent a bit of time on that one. There was limited to what I could do on that car though during lockdown, because I didn't have any more parts and I didn't know where I was going with it, but I was still tinkering and fiddling with the fuel injection, trying to make it work, cleaning parts, taking parts apart, rebuilding them, because I really wanted to get the engine working before I got into the bodywork, which I have now started on as well. I have found that there's a little bit more rust than I was hoping for, as you may have seen. But yeah, that's going to get done. But then one day, just as I was demonstrating, I was just going to bite the bullet and send the fuel metering unit away, which is a horrifically expensive job. That's why I've not done it for so long. Just did a quick video demonstrating, and here's what happens when the car doesn't start. It started, and now it starts on the button every single time. The car is, as far as a running car is concerned, faultless. It needs brakes, it runs but doesn't stop, which is halfway there. Oh, my modern car, my Mercedes C250 CDI, that got a full service and new brakes, or front brakes, down at Stevenson's Mercedes, an independent place, because it's on the electronic service stamp book system. So I have to have it serviced and stamped by someone who can access the Mercedes Star computer, which is a shame because it's nothing very technical, but it's also good though to have someone who does know the cars and they can sort of find faults before they happen. So he serviced that, and then a week later I wasn't able to drive it for 3 or 4 months, apart from like Sainsbury's once. So yeah, the battery actually died in that car. I spent a fortune buying, what, about £220 on a new battery for it. Before it even arrived though, I tripped over one I had in the garage that I'd salvaged from a friend's car that had been destroyed in a flood. brand new battery. So I was able to cancel that and save 200 quid on that. That was a real relief. That I'd actually given him £20 on the off chance that that battery might come in handy, because it turns out it was exactly the right model for the Merc. That car, it's done a few more thousand miles over the year, for anyone that's really clicked over more than a couple of thousand of the entire fleet. But yeah, the only other job it's had all year was having the and the gearbox mount. That was done because those wear out after 100,000 miles on those cars, and that's now driving like new again. Oh, and the blue Mini you might be able to see behind me, my wife's car, Mrs. Furious's car. It's had nothing done. It's had one sort of routine service. It's under warranty from Mini, so any work that needs doing to it, and it hasn't needed any, would go back to Mini. But we didn't take it to Mini for its service. We took it to Trevor, the same guy who services all, or doesn't service my cars, but does MOTs and routine work on my other cars, because he was able to do it and stamp the book for a third of the price of Mini. So sorry Mini, you're far too expensive. 350 quid for an oil and filter change. I don't think it's even an air filter, it's just oil and filter. It's just exorbitant. Then we got two new additions, nothing left the fleet this year. Something probably should have left the fleet this year, but got two new ones. First of all, we got the Volvo, which seems to be everyone's favourite. I don't want to sell it, but I sort of feel like I should sell it because I've kind of done nearly everything I'm going to do to it, and I'd like a Saab 900. But I feel like there'd be a mutiny and people would be outside the house with pitchforks and flaming torches if I did. But that car I bought for a repeat of the Santa Pod Cheap Car Challenge, just a few weeks before the first lockdown happened actually. The challenge was to find a car for £500, including all the work to make it road legal, including the MOT. So I was looking at Fiestas and Clios and that kind of thing on Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace, real cheapy cars that needed a little bit of work and maybe had a few months MOT left, so I didn't have to pay to MOT them, so they could potentially be scrapped for parts afterwards. And this Volvo 740 just popped up, one owner from new, looking tidy, very short MOT, and the owner admitted he'd been told at the last MOT it would need welding for the next one. But £175, you really can't go wrong with that, can you? So I took a chance, and it's been a fantastic car. It also gave me plenty of material when we couldn't go out during lockdown, because it turned out it did need actually quite a lot of welding, both footwells, one of the chassis rails. It's a little bit more welding to do in the back, somewhere non-structural, which I need to go and find. The MOT guy pointed it out, and I've not had a chance to look at it yet. Had front brakes done to it. It had drop links. I mean, when obviously we couldn't do the cheap car challenge because Santa Pod was shut and we couldn't go anywhere. So then our spending limits went out the window and just decided to make it as nice as possible. So I spent a couple of days polishing it. And a whole bunch of diamond bright stuff. One cut, I think it's called, was like a real heavy duty cut. It took a lot of the surface abrasion off, clay barred it. It did the whole works, and it actually looks still. I've not really done anything more than just a service wash on it since, and it still looks really nice. Had a new set of front tyres, used new back tyres as well at some point. They're legal, but they're just really cheap and nasty. The headlining. The headlining was a horrible job. That was a couple of days' work, getting the headlining in there on my own, because I didn't take the back window out, which really I should have done, but it was locked down. I couldn't go anywhere. So I just did that here, wheedling it through the back door, and that's not a fun job. A guy in Sweden did one and somehow managed to get the headlining through the back door with apparent ease. There must be some camera trickery in that. So the Volvo is now here, and it's become a regular favourite on the channel. And then by chance, I wasn't looking for another car, but someone offered me Quentin, the Rover 216 convertible. It wasn't called Quentin then, of course. It was called that old scrap Rover on my drive. He'd been offered £100 scrap for it. The car was going to go for scrap. There was a one chance to save it, and I thought they're pretty rare, and it's got a nice leather interior, so I'll take a chance on it. Even if it's beyond saving, the leather interior is worth more than I'm paying to buy it and ship it. Anyway, it turns out convertible 216s are astonishingly rare. There's like 30 or 40 left of them on the road. It's ridiculous. So we set to saving it, and first of all, basic servicing was easy. Then basic servicing like cam belt. I didn't want to start it until the cam belt was done. Unfortunately, there was a lot of very seized bolts, and it wasn't here at home. It was away in a car park where I was working on it, and I had to call in the services of a friend, Chris, who is a mobile mechanic. He came along with some mobile power tools, and eventually we managed to get the alternator out, which is the reason the car had been parked up in the first place. And I managed to get the alternator out and change the cam belt. So that car is now running. I had to do after the alternator, the timing belt to service it, obviously. I had to get a new key and remote and demobilizer and ECU for the thing, because that had all lost sync or broken or something, so we couldn't make the car start. Now it does start. Changed the roof frame. I've got a new roof cover, so as soon as it's MOT'd I can drive it to a trimmer and then get that done. Got a new wing for it because the wing was rotten. Done a little bit of welding on it, only a tiny bit around the corners of the sills. There's probably more. It's quite a long series. It was longer than I ever anticipated. I thought it would be 2 or 3 weeks at the most, and that would have an MOT and be driving out of my life. But it's been here about 6 months now, and hopefully in the first week or two of January we'll get an MOT on that, and then we can ship it off to trimmers, and they can put a new roof on it. Fingers crossed. We did also do a quick rescue on a Fiesta. Someone who lives in the village. Someone at my age, never driven, was given a Fiesta that had been a 17-year-old's learning car and had some serious signs of extreme learning all over it, but had been parked in a hedge for a year. So we took that car, we got it going, serviced it, did a few more jobs on it, needed a little bit of welding, as always, brakes, MOT, got that through the MOT, then gave it a mega clean. Thankfully we were sponsored by Diamond Bright at that point, so we were able to make the thing look shiny, and it still actually does look pretty shiny. So that's been a little success story, saving the little Fiesta. The Fiesta with no name. Another success story has been these mugs, these Rover mugs. These have been a really popular seller on the Redbubble store. Sold one to Australia last night, actually. If that was you, say hello in the comments. What else has happened? Oh yeah, took a bit of a slight detour away from cars into a little bit of history and architecture. The Roots building, the home of the old Roots group. Yeah, the Roots Group garage in Maidstone. That was a massive, beautiful Art Deco building, and I managed to get access to that and talk about the history of the building and the company. That's been very popular, and I thought maybe off the back of that, the Medway Queen, which is a Dunkirk little ship, might be a popular follow-up. Apparently not. People didn't really take that one nearly as much as heart. I'll put a link to that on below, because that is a very overlooked video. It's always a shame sometimes when you put a lot of effort into a video and people just don't really pay any attention. When I went up to the ship about 3 times. I spent several days researching it. I spent a lot of time doing drone footage. It was a long time editing as well. But that one just didn't really I'm going to say sunk without traces, but the wrong thing to say about a ship. Maybe I should start another channel and just put history and stuff on that one instead. But yeah, that was the non-review stuff. So yeah, all the cars managed to get a lot of progress done with them in this otherwise terrible year. Unfortunately, when lockdown ended and I was able to get back to work, there was a mega rush on my real work trying to catch up, because we don't really do a lot of work in the wintertime, and suddenly we had a few weeks to catch up and get everything else done. So the cars kind of took a little bit of a back seat for a few weeks in the middle of the summertime. But yeah, so they've all made progress, and there's lots more to do though. The Rover V8 is nearly going to drive. The Mercedes 123, that's got a ton to do on it. That's got so much more to do. Yeah, there's more to come on all the cars, basically. Beyond the working on the cars, it's the car reviews, the goes for a drives, which is where the channel started a long time ago, which was just purely GoPros stuck on cars about 8 years ago, and no talking about it, nothing else, and then well, different story, started talking about the cars, and that's when the channel started to grow. We had 67 car reviews. That's 67 cars went for a drive, which is, it's quite a lot really, and there's a massive variety, which I'm really pleased to have done. Everything from pre-war cars up to the very latest models. So yeah, the Modern Mondays thing is starting to take off. I mean, it's kind of a shame. I'm not known for modern car reviews, so when I do a retro car, the Granada, which went out on Friday last week, that's had over 20,000 views. The Kia Niro, which is a car which is probably more relevant to more people in terms of being a car that people might actually go and buy, that's only had about 5,000 views or 6,000 views. So it's interesting how they don't really get the same level of views, even though it takes a lot more work to review a modern car. But it's taking off slowly. So, but yeah, we've had only a couple of pre-war cars, and I was planning on hoping to do more pre-war cars. I do enjoy driving this mad esoteric antique stuff, really. So we got to drive the 1930 Morris Minor, which was a real challenge with the pedals the wrong way around. That was an exciting car to drive. Also got to drive another Austin 7. This time was an Ulster reproduction, so that was exciting. That was quite a brisk little car. That was the pedals in the right order, because Austin 7s did. They were one of the first cars in the world to use the correct pedal order, but it had a manual fuel pump, so you had to keep on pumping the fuel pressure as you went along, which is an interesting thing. Oh, and the gear shift was in the wrong layout, so it was, I forget what it was now. One was where third would be, second, I think it was kind of flipped like a mirror. So one where third would be, two where second would be in the right place, and third up where first would be. So that was, yeah, interesting to drive. But that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I really did like that car. Then the latest things like the Kia Niro hybrid. The Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, that was an astonishing car. That was just so ridiculously quick. It was just insane. It was potentially dangerously quick, but I loved it. You know, I do love an Alfa, so new car, if I had, you know, 50 to 100,000 pounds to spend on a modern car, I think that would be it. But then I do love an Alfa anyway, and we did get to drive some other exciting Italian stuff as well. The Alfa 90 V6, that was a precursor to the Giulia Quadrifoglio. Nowhere near as quick, but more makes up for its insanity. The aircraft style window switches up in the headlining, that was just madness. Another Italian excellentness was things like the Fiat Dino, another V6 actually. That was just another beautiful car. And everything in between. Ran through most of the Mercedes C-Class Estate series. And of course got to drive one of my ultimate dream cars, the Ford Crown Victoria, an unlikely dream car really, because that's not really many people's dream car. So yeah, it's been an eventful year. I'm running a little montage in the background to remind you of some of the many cars I've driven. The VW Thing, the Towns Hustler, Wolseley's. Even now, I struggle to think back. There have been so many cars this year, so much variety. So I hope you've enjoyed the many different things that we've been out in and experienced together. Next year, of course, it's going to be, well, I say not more of the same, hopefully be more that's different. More modern cars coming. I'm trying to organise more and more car reviews with manufacturers to borrow new cars so we can actually take out the latest and greatest. And, well, not necessarily the greatest. We'll find out if they are great or not. We'll find out as we go along if they're great or terrible. We'll try and be as honest as we can be. And obviously lots more pre-war, mid-war, interwar, and obviously and of course lots more old time stuff as well. Pre-war if I can, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, every decade. There's lots of cars which we still haven't tried yet, and lots of other variants. Cars we have tried, but there's different engines and transmission combinations, so that changes the car's personality. So there's lots more cars to get out and try. So this coming year will continue to be different and exciting, I hope. And maybe, just maybe, we can get some road trips in. That's what we're really hoping for. So fingers crossed. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. My main takeaway from this year is thank you for watching. A lot of people have said on the comments during lockdown they were kind of going a bit stir crazy, and having something like this to focus on and follow really gave them something to get out of bed for. And I've got to be honest, it was the same for me. I had no work. I've got to be honest, it was kind of the same for me. Having this YouTube channel to focus on was really good for me to be able to do as well. So it's worked both ways. So thank you for watching it, and I do appreciate that. And thank you for hitting that subscribe button, because that's absolutely exploded the channel to the point that this year, maybe in 2021, this will become like my main job. I can't imagine I'll stop doing photography, because I absolutely love doing that, and I would never want to stop doing it. But it's kind of getting to the point where this is taking over. Interesting times, as they say. May you live in interesting times. I hope you'll have a great new year, and hopefully 2021 will be a big improvement on 2020. Well, let's face it, it can't get much worse, can it? If you're watching this before Thursday, I'm going to be doing a live chat on Thursday night, New Year's Eve at 8 o'clock. Hopefully you can come along and say hello, see you there. If not, I'll see you sometime in the new year. Take care, everybody. Happy New Year and happy 2021.